Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Daily AI News with Bilal. Today's big news is Google has made a big move in AI automation with the launch of Workspace Studio. This platform gives every Google Workspace user the ability to build custom agents that can directly interact with Google applications like Gmail, Drive, Sheets. And using this, you can ask Gemini in natural language, like English, and give it a prompt to create custom and complex agentic flows for you. For example, you can prompt when I get a sales lead in Gmail, create a Google Drive folder for that client, extract that company's information from the internet, and put it in my CRM sheet. And you can ask it to generate a personalized Google document for which could be like a proposal for the client, and then you can ask it to like create a list of action items for your team for that specific client. So, and this AI actually does all the technical setup for you, and it finally just gives it to you in like a very clean user friendly interface. So basically, you no longer have to be technical to set up these powerful custom integrations. This capability was really the last major AI feature that Google needed to match OpenAI, who had launched Agent Kit in October. But I think with Workspace Studio, Google does have a clear advantage because in Workspace Studio you can generate like an entire workflow using just a single prompt, whereas in Agent Kit you have to like manually create all the nodes of your workflow and integrate them yourself. And secondly, because the Workspace Studio is like deeply integrated into the Google's ecosystem, if you're using Google Documents, Gmail, you don't have to worry about complex API keys and security permissions. It just kind of works for you. So the crucial difference with Agent Kit is that if you want to work with Gmail, you have to get an API key, which might be a little challenging for a lot of like non-developers or non-technical people out there, right? I think with this change, the kind of the battleground now shifts more into the ambient AI space. So we all know OpenAI is building its own hardware device, which is rumored to be like an always on, always listening, always kind of training on you, and a system design that can just learn everything about you, right? It's going to be some sort of a device like that. So so it will be interesting to see how Google will match that. Now, Google does have its Pixel lineup of phones, and it does have the home Google Home device ecosystem. So it could tap into all of those for in this space. But my prediction is that the company that can acquire a customer through like hardware integration will achieve a type of stickiness we have not seen yet, kind of in this race. So imagine if Chat GPT already knows everything about your life. So there's effectively zero incentive to switch to Gemini, even if let's say their underlying model is technically superior, right? So the battle for the future is not just going to be about the best AI model. It's going to be about the device or the platform that knows you best. So looks like Google is wants to extend its lead even further in this race. In this race, they have launched a deep think capability within the Gemini platform or application. So instead of following so how deep think works is instead of following like a single path, this new mode utilizes parallel reasoning. So essentially, it's like it explores multiple solutions simultaneously before giving you the single best answer. And as expected, like DeepThink has topped all major math and science benchmarks, which include like complex reasoning tasks, like the humanities last exam benchmark. The only catch is that this is only available to Gemini Ultra subscribers. That's the $250 per month tier. Um, so not everyone will be able to use it immediately, at least. Who knows in the future, they might give users like one search, or like a couple of search deep think searches a month, something like that. I'm excited to see how that works. This move is a clear signal to the market, and especially to rivals like OpenAI, that Google is practically like it's refusing to slow down in this race, and it's not afraid to use its biggest advantage, which is its sheer computing scale, right? Because if you see, deepthink is not necessarily a fundamental redesign of the underlying AI or the model. It's just throwing more power, more iterations, more computing resources towards a model to define its answers, and something only like Google is positioned to do, and they can do it at an unmatched scale because nobody has that type of scale, right? Okay, moving on. What's funny is that when Google is in the lead by outspending everyone, Anthropic CEO has said that the AI arms race is getting reckless, with some competitors taking financial risks that could lead to a disaster. Now, obviously, he did not name companies that, but it has to be Google and OpenAI, because OpenAI has committed to $1 trillion in infrastructure deals over the next 5 or so years. If you compare that to Anthropic's 50 billion commitment, it just looks, the 50 billion looks just too modest, right? So the main idea is that these firms are throwing massive sums of money at building AGI dominance. But the question still remains, is there enough economic value and guaranteed revenue from these models to offset these staggering multi-year costs? This is practically $1 trillion gamble, right? Now, the current rate at which these compute costs are growing is frankly unsustainable. Um, and the exponential curve kind of has to flatten out, and the only way I see that happening is if these companies start to hit fundamental scaling laws that limit their ability to throw more compute at the models to make them better, or else the only option will be that they will have to slow down the pace of development until like the revenue catches up and gives us a positive return on all this investment, right? Uh, Microsoft has just given us the clearest signal yet of an economic friction in the AI adoption curve. They have reportedly been forced to slash their internal AI sales targets by as much as half. They expected more growth from platforms like Copilot and Azure Foundry, but those sales did not materialize. So, and I think the reason is simple and pretty logical. Companies are just finding it hard or difficult to quantitatively verify the cost savings and the productivity outcomes of these new agents that they're deploying. And honestly, I think when faced with like high subscription fees that these tools have, the businesses are going to be hesitant towards committing massive amounts of their budget unless they can reliably prove like a very concrete return on investment from these subscriptions. So I do think that this is a good time to like look ahead of how the kind of the AI operational model will change over the coming years. Um, I think I think once large scale AI adoption is achieved, it becomes very hard to justify like high ongoing OPEX costs that these like subscription based tools have, unless like the value is absolutely indisputable, right? So my prediction is that once a company knows exactly which AI automations it needs and how they can deliver value, I think these companies will start to look at building their own systems, be that building those systems on their own hardware or at least using open source software. Like for example, you could use NA10 for some automations, and you can self-host it, things like that, right? Uh, I think companies might look at moving the cost structure from more of like this OPEX base with these subscription tools to more of a COPEX, where you kind of CAPEX, where you kind of invest on those in the hardware and the software kind of upfront, and maybe that will give them a better like long-term return on their investment. All right. So finally, last item is, so while all of this is happening, OpenAI is actually working on something that will increase its costs, but it's going to be for it's going towards good. OpenAI just published a paper on a new training method that teaches models to confess when they have taken shortcuts, like hallucinated or broken a rule. Um, and it's interesting that like as people start to like trust AI systems more and more, this kind of built-in honesty layer helps use basically helps make sure that users are not relying on incorrect information, right? Sam Altman himself actually has said that he can't believe the world trusts ChatGPT, which is a system that can actually hallucinate, right? And there was a report from, or like a published research from MIT earlier this month, where they showed that LLMs often take hidden shortcuts when the language of a question resembles a specific domain, and there's honestly like a no way to really know that the model is taking a shortcut. But so this is going to be really helpful, obviously, but the trade-off is that this feature increases the cost per request, because the model will be doing a second pass over its own output to verify that it gave a right answer, and if it not, write down it, or basically confess what it did wrong, right? So but anyway, I think it's a good example of OpenAI choosing to do the right thing for safety and reliability, even though every economic incentive says that they should be cutting costs right now to compete with the likes of Google. So one concern that people actually have with this approach, training approach, is that if you're going to reward a model for admitting that it made a mistake, then it is possible that that model starts to fabricate bad thoughts so that it would have something to confess, right? So, well, it's interesting times. I can't believe I'm alive when there's so many massive advancements happening on a daily basis, and I'm just excited to be here and covering all these news for you guys. All right, I will catch you tomorrow. Until then, good night.